General Motors say that they are going to make a profit on EVs in 2025, and I think they actually could. And they're going to make $50 billion in revenue in that same year. Is this actually feasible? Well, there's one way that this could work. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you. Welcome to all the new subscribers. Welcome back, everyone else. I'm just going to get right straight to it. One way this could work is General Motors firing about half of its workforce. Yes, sounds harsh. Unfortunately, the reality is harsh but true. Why? GM doesn't make a profit selling EVs right now. And the reality is the main way that they can make a profit making EVs is by using less staff. Staff are the most expensive part of the equation. That's the reality. That's the truth. And you don't need them. Well, you do need staff, but you don't need as many staff. To make an electric car, you probably need around 50% less staff if you do it right, if you're using automation the way you should be. And considering General Motors is taking this very seriously, I think it will be able to pull this off. Also, the other big advantage of EVs, there's a lot less moving parts. And of course, seeing as GM will be making the batteries themselves, well, with their battery partner, so there is a middleman there a little bit, but still the cost should be reduced. The other thing to consider is the IRA, right? GM will be getting money from the government on every single battery pack it manufactures in the United States. So that will help them to make a profit as well. That's one of the ways that Chinese manufacturers can actually not make a loss, by getting subsidies from the government. That's what they've been relying upon for years in order to either break even or make a small profit. GM will deploy a pretty similar strategy. Now, speaking with Auto News, GM said it expects to see low to mid single-digit margins on EVs mid-decade, and that they will generate over $50 billion in revenue from EVs, representing a good portion of the brand's expected $225 billion in total revenue in 2025. These figures don't take into account revised federal EV tax credits. Now, that figure of $225 billion means GM's revenue will have to significantly climb from where it's at today. In the 12 months ending September 30, 2022, GM's revenue was $147 billion. Last year, GM's revenue was $127 billion. So GM is saying they're going to basically double their revenue in the space of only 3 or 4 years. Is that realistic? Well, I mean, hey, we've got to include inflation here. That could affect them being able to increase their revenue by this sort of amount. Maybe not that amount, but at least some of the way. Can they realistically double their revenue? I'd say probably not. Could they get to, say, $200 billion in revenue, so $50 billion per quarter? Well, they hit about $40 billion in Q3 this year. So yeah, that is completely feasible, especially if they are mass manufacturing electric cars and compelling electric cars. And I do think they're going to. We actually estimate that these tax credits are going to be worth $3,500 to $5,500 per vehicle coming from GM through 2025. GM Chief Financial Officer Paul Jacobson said at the car maker's recent Investor Day. Together, those credits could add 5 to 7 points of margin to the EVs, which puts us in a position where the tax credits are accelerating what we were already going to do and to get our ICE vehicles like margins by 2025. Basically, the only way they can get ICE vehicle margins is with tax credits, at least in 2025 or 2026. So General Motors, they are disclosing the reality, which is that they'll make very small margins on EVs in 2025, if at all. I'm not convinced they'll make margins at all, to be honest. But they're saying that they expect to make small margins on the cars, but because of the tax credits, the margins should be similar to their gasoline-powered vehicle margins. So essentially, the IRA is necessary for companies like GM to move from gas to manufacturing only electric cars. Without it, they probably couldn't do it. GM intends to produce 1 million EVs from 5 factories in North America in 2025. That's equal to almost half of the 2.1 million total vehicles that it produced in North America in 2021. Jacobson said the brand's annual capital spending through 2025 will range from $11 billion to $13 billion. So they're going to invest $11 to $13 billion per year for electric vehicle manufacturing, battery pack manufacturing, transforming existing factories from making gas cars to electric cars. That's a pretty significant investment, $11 to $13 billion per year, because those revenue numbers, that's revenue, that's not profit. So that's going to eat up a significant amount of their profits. It's necessary though, you've got to do it. Short-term pain, long-term gain. But it is interesting to see. GM is basically saying 50% of its vehicle production in the US will be fully electric in 2025. That's a good goal to have. We believe the EV market will be even bigger by 2025 than the 17% share of industry that a lot of third-party forecasters are predicting, he said. We're going to do that with great design, quality, performance, and more price points than anybody else can offer. I'm not convinced having more price points than anybody else is a significant selling factor. I'm more convinced that having compelling vehicles at compelling prices, not necessarily a million price points. Remember, what can happen is what happened to Xpeng and Neo, similar sort of things. They had millions of price points and people just got so confused, they ended up getting analysis paralysis. They ended up not buying. So they had to basically revamp their lineups, their product lineups, and revamp their websites to get rid of all the choices. There's just too many choices available. I don't think GM is making a wise decision if they're going to do that. If you're going to go down that route of having hundreds of different possible choices, you have, let's say, 35 models, and then you have maybe 10 different choices per model, you're looking at 350 choices. I mean, it's very difficult then to narrow down which choice to go with. And I'm not convinced that's a good solution. I think Tesla has shown that it's not. Yes, it's important to have a range of cars. It's important to have a vehicle in each segment, but it isn't important to have as many price points as what GM said they're going to. I'm not convinced on that one. He added that GM's US battery cell capacity should top 160 gigawatt hours by the middle of the decade, and that battery cell prices should fall from around $87 per kilowatt hour in 2025. They're not anywhere near that now, by the way. So GM are hoping that they can get down to $87 in 2025. I don't think that'll happen, but it could, to less than $70 per kilowatt hour in the second half of the decade. So will GM be able to manufacture batteries at a lower cost in the second half of the decade, or even in 2025 versus today? Yes, for sure. Mass manufacturing a product will definitely bring the prices down. Will they come down as much as GM hopes? Maybe, but GM, remember, do believe that they can increase battery energy density by 60%. That's a pipe dream. I think that's pure fantasy. Can GM bring the price of their lithium batteries being manufactured in the US to $70 per kilowatt hour in the second half of the decade? Now, it's pretty unlikely. If you consider the impact of inflation, they're basically saying the battery cost will halve, more than halve versus today. I don't see that happening. Let me know though. What do you think? Do you think that'll happen? Let me know in the comments. I like GM's vision here. No matter what, yes, I've been critical of some of their decisions. Yes, I've been critical of their CEO because she often talks out, well, yeah, you get the point, talks a lot of nonsense and makes promises which are not really. She knows that they're just like, hype, anti-Tesla comments, unnecessary in my opinion. But GM are definitely doing the right thing here. They're focusing on two markets, North America and China. They're focusing on basically the two biggest markets in the world. And they're focusing on electric cars. That's a smart strategy, and I think it will work in the long term. Will they be able to deliver everything they say they're going to deliver? Probably not. I mean, considering their track record, definitely not. But I like what they're doing. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Disagree? Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.